Hi guys, today we will discuss about the how the flow of Spring Boot code, and later we understand some annotations. So now let's understand the flow of the Spring Boot code. First, whenever you put this URL in Postman, because the Postman used for the checking your code, means whenever we use a RESTful APIs, whenever you use a RESTful APIs, that time we need to check your code, because that time you don't have a front end to take a request from front end, and then execute our code in backends process, and then you give the response in till the front ends. That time we use a Postman is used for basically you can say that a Postman is used for code checking purpose, because means you have to check your code is correctly is you working or not, correctly working is or not. So now let's understand the flow of the our code. So here we have to put this URL. You use this URL, and you run our Spring Boot code in Postman. So this part, whenever we run our code, Postman or Spring will divide this URL, this whole URL into two parts. Like it first part is http colon double forward slash localhost 8005. The meaning of and next slash API slash add. Hmm. The meaning of this http colon double forward slash localhost colon 800. The meaning of this URL is your Spring will understands by using this local host and this port number, the our server will run. So that's using this Spring will understand our code, or our code it will run in this port numbers, and this is understands, and this is this slash API dot slash add will tells you, means your now see your code will and it comes in additional controller, means your code will start in here, and then it will take the post mapping, and then it Spring will call this methods and gives back the response. Now let's see it will work or not. No, it's not working because we are not still not started your servers. So the best practice to whenever you are run your code, but first you have to whenever you start your check your coding in Postman, before you have to run your servers. So now let's run your servers once again. No, come here. This is your projects. Clean. Okay. Now next you have to run your code. Clean. Hmm. Now see here your server is started. Now let's check once again the it's running or not. Now our output is comes. So the question is here some issues is happen. It's the first time, but whenever we want to do any changes in code, that time you have to run your code your server run your server once again. That time it's too much hectic to start your server once again. So that time you have to use up one some starters, like starters name is Spring Dev Tool. This starters is used uh, to restart your server, to restart your server to restart your server while you are changing while you are changing your code. So now let's add this dependency or starters in your projects uh, to avoid to again and again you have to restart your servers. So now let's add this dependency. So here have to come. You can you can use ChatGPT also to for the starters, right? For Spring. See, now ChatGPT gives this starters, and you copy this starters and put it into your form.xml file. Now here you have to put your dependency. Whenever you now next, whenever you add any dependencies in pom.xml, we need to restart the servers. But you have so just wait. Here it will build. Nothing is happened. But whenever it's important whenever you add any dependency in pom.xml, you need to restart your server once again. So now let's start your server. Hmm. Now, now run your code. Clean Spring colon run. So now let's restart your servers once again. Before, you have to stop your current server, then you have to again restart the server. So now let's do it. Now run your server. So see, here now server is restarted. Now let's check your added dependency is working or not. So let's go here and in controller, and here you have to write uh, some code like, and here you have to uh, like type with sorry. Now let's check your server is now getting restarted or not. First we have to save all these things. Sorry, here I wait. When we will save, whenever we save, your server will be getting restarted. Let's check. See, now your server is restarted once again in the port number 8005. So now check your code once. Now check your codes in once again in Postman. Everything is good. Now let's check. Now output is comes. Now come to here and see. It gives you all the additional results like additional request like 10, 20. You have to pass this ones, and whatever you pass, it comes here. The but question is the whenever you use a system.out.println, it gives you the only the value which you have to pass. But the one another things we have to use like logger.info. Why logger.info given by the uh, SLF4J. SLF4J created a logger. By using this logger, we have to see your all the message like what you have to what you are passing, so like logger information, debugging error, timings, everything we have to see. So now let's check the logger info also. First we have to put this logger info here, means some logger. So now I have write this and let's write a logger info. Here we have to write what you want, like here I am Also write this code. We don't want to use this one. The instance of uh, plus you have to use a curly braces. Now it's correct. Now let's save this code and now let's check once again what is happening. So come to here and once again you run your code in Postman. Now everything is correct. Now comes here and see. Here your system.out.println also will run and it gives the value. What is the value you have to pass? And see here. Here it gives the some IP addresses and some IP addresses, debugging error loggers, everything is present, and also it gives the values. What's the value you have to use? So now let's understands how is the flow of this Spring Boot code. So first come here and understands. Basically, the C in code. See here you have a base package which you have to created before using at the time of project creations. So here it is a base package and it is responsible to run your Spring Boot code. So now next is you have a um, controller. Wait, I will show you. See, here you have a controller package, Pojo package, and service package. Now let's understand the flow of this. Basically, you have to understand the your in current in Springs also you can say in Springs Postman is work like a front end work like a front end where you have to pass your data and then give response back in the same uh, postman postman. So first here you have to put this URL and you have to pass the number like num1 is 10, num2 is 20, and then it gives the some answer, some results. What is the total value of this is 30. So according to this you have to understand, easily understand. So first and assume that this postman is your front end. So you that you can easily understand how the flow of the code. So first here you have a front end code and here you have a and here you have a database. Assume that in your current code you don't have a database, but you have to use a database. database. So now let's understand the flow. Your front end is nothing but it's a Postman's. And here in Postman, in front end, you have a something like username, password, everything is here. And here you have a sign in page or login page, sign in and login buttons. So whenever we have to put the username and passwords, and whenever you click the login button, the request will goes to from front end, the request will goes to back end. In backend there are so many packages, like you have to, according to your codes, you have to see this. Here you have a controllers, pojo and services. So uh, that's here you have a controller, here you have a pojo package, and here you have a service. So in backend, you have a three packages like controller, Pojo, and services. So when you send the when your front end data will when you click the, you have a front end like that, means you have a username and passwords and login buttons. When you click the login buttons, your all the data will goes to backends, and it contact with and backends. First it goes to the controller package, and here in controller you have to see your all the methods will call here, means what's the codes you have to write in front ends, everything will come here. And after that you have to create, means you have a code like a what methods, everything will comes in controllers. After controllers, the controller will see that you have a login usernames and passwords, but the controller will check the first it goes to postmans and see in pojo, sorry, in pojo, and in pojo they have to see. So what's the value you have to pass? Everything will be comes in here and stay in here. Means in the variables like that. See, uh, in controllers, your front end request will comes here. Means you have to call the API dot slash API dot slash add methods, and after that here I have used some methods, and that method it will go and here, and it comes here. Here they wants like some get num1 and num2 values, and then after it go to the pojo class, pojo package, and here you have to see that's the here wants to, like here I have to put all the value of num1 and num2, and then it get means get the values. So so that's why here I use a get num1 and get num2 request. So the value is will stay will comes, then after the and after that the request will goes to you have carry two values like in pojo you have to see you have a two values like num1 and num2, but the question is what you are doing these numbers, what is the work of these numbers. So that then you have to go in a service layer. Service layer is used for business logic. service layer is used for business logics. And now come here, and here you have to see in business logics, the two number is comes like n1 and n2, but the what you want to these numbers, what you use for these numbers. So they call these methods, and then it return num1 and num2 values, means you have to add these two values and then give the response. Then after uh, business logics will works, means service layer will work their own works, and it later it will sends the response back to the uh, controller controllers. And then controllers like uh, they uh, they wants to, means the persons or clients wants to add these two values, and then it will add these two values, and later it will response, then controller responds back to the front end. But the use so later we have to use a database, but in our project we are not using a database, but the mostly the use of database is uh, whenever you want to add these values or num1 or num2 values, what comes in after adding the database, the connection of through database, you have of another layer like repository layer. Repository, here we have to write all the database, write all the logics related to database connections, like JDBC Hibernate logic. So you have to write in repository. Then the data will go, then data which you have to pass, then service to repository layers, and then repository layer will add to connect our services to database, and then the value will store in database, like that. Here in database, what's the request comes, it save in database. So like this is the flow of your projects, how the spring all the layers are works, and how is the flow of this. So now let's understand the annotations, some annotations. You know about the spring uh, uh, is a powerful framework because of their annotations and some functionality and some features. Uh, the annotations, if you talk, best the best use of this Spring is whenever we want to create an object. Spring will create the objects by using some annotations. Developer will no need to do any object creation for any classes. But in the time of Java, but in core Java, developer will need to uh, create an object. So they don't want they they wants to create an objects for any classes manually. But in Springs, they no need to create an objects of any classes. So for the object creation, we use annotations called at the rate component, at the rate controller, at the rate RestController. Component is a parent of controller and rest controllers also. So when we want to create an objects of any classes, you can use directly, you can use a controllers, otherwise you can sorry, components, otherwise you can use any annotations like components and rest controllers. So directly or indirectly you have to use any annotations like component. You have to use when if you don't want to use a controller, rest controller, you can use a components directly or indirectly. Indirectly. So these annotations are mostly used for the object creations. So here you have to see, here I am using a REST controllers, means Spring will create the objects of additional controllers. So object will create the Spring will create the objects, but who is the manager of the who is the manager who will manage the objects? So the object will manage by the container. So now let's understand. Here you have a RAM, and whenever we create an object, your object will go and will store in the heap memory. Will store in heap memory. So here it is a heap memory, and inside this heap memory, whenever we create an object, Spring will create an objects. Here one container will created, and here all the, and it has a ability to all the Spring, those who Spring will create an objects will store in this container. Like here, container will manage Spring so many objects for classes. So uh, here you have a container. So Spring will create the objects by using this some annotations, and the container will manage the objects in container. Before we have to understand, um, like and this concept is called object is creation concept is called means IOC in version of control. Inversion of control is nothing but it is used to manage, it is used to create and manage the objects, and container will contain it will use Spring will this concept is called Spring will create the object. This concept will called as a inversion of controls, means you don't create the means developer will don't create the objects, Spring will create the objects by using some inversion of controls. So and the container will manage all the objects, and but the question is uh, like so the Java objects will be managed and created by the containers, and this is also called as a Spring Bean. Spring Bean means uh, Spring will create the objects and managed by the container, and this process is called as a Spring Bean. And we know understand the IOC in version of control means developer will not create the objects. In a simple way we can understand, developer will not create the objects, Spring will create the objects, and this concept is called IOC means inversion of control. So now let's understand see another annotations. Now see here in your codes means now here we are using at the rate Autowired. Now let's understand this annotations. What is the annotation called at the rate Autowired? In core Java, you have to understand whenever we want to access one class functions to another class, like let's take an example. Class A, here you have a class A, and here and so So, whenever we want to access one class functions to another class, we have to create a class. We have to manually have to create objects of one class to another class. Then we have to call the methods like that. See, class B. Here after reference variables like that. New class B. And here you have to call the methods by using the reference variables like a run method you can write by for an examples, and here you have to run call this run methods. Hmm. Like that you have to call one from one class functions to another class function in another class. This is manually done by the developers, but in Spring, one annotation is called Autowired. By using these annotations, we no need to create a you no need to create one class objects to another class to access them to access one class properties to another class. By using this annotation, you can access the one class properties to another class. Like see here. Here I am using the @autowired like private auto services or like here auto service additional services, and here I use a reference variables. So means the meaning of this is we wants to access the all like you are accessing means you are access one class one class methods or objects everything one class methods means one class methods like all these values or this logics will be accessed in controller class. So using this by using this annotation you can access one class objects to another class. Means you have to access this what you want to do, like you have two numbers, you have to pass these two numbers and then here you have to add these two numbers, like that it happens. Now let's understand the another annotations by using these codes. Here you are using some post mappings. The post mapping is used for it is a HTTP methods. By using this, we have to call or to analyze which method will call for in uh, at the time of calling the methods. Like means whenever we use here replica, whenever we want we use like getter, that time we have to retrieve the data or data from the postmans, and post is used to put uh, put the some values in postman, and patch put is also used for deleting the updating the data, and delete is used for deleting the data. These are the HTTP methods which you are used in uh, which are used in code by at the time of when we run the your code in postmans. But next is request mapping. Now let's understand the request mapping annotations. Request mapping. Request mapping Request mapping is nothing but you have to understand when you have to take the data from the front ends, means postmans. So that time your data, where your data will first is where your data will go, means here I'm using an API like that. See in your code, here I'm using a request mapping slash API. Means whenever we can take the data from the front end, then data, and by using this URL, you are take the data from the front ends slash API slash add. That time the Spring will go to this request mappings, and then here they check, okay, if you have a this URL, and after this check the slash add slash add URL, and then here comes here, and then he check here, okay, you have a slash add methods, then they call this, Spring will call this methods, and then execute and give the response. Only the use of this annotation is to map your front end request to backend. Map The request mapping annotation is used only for to map your front-end request to backends, and then they executes. Now let's understand the another annotations like a request body. The next annotation is request body. Now next annotation is request body. Now so let's understand what is the use of these annotations. When you when your data will come from front end to back ends, then your data will comes front end to back end. That time your data will comes in a JSON formats. So it's too much it's in a JSON format, comes in JSON format, but we are using we are using Java codes. So Java don't know about the JSON. So what is JSON? That time this request body will work to convert this the JSON data in JSON data, and convert this JSON data to Java objects, and then the Java will executes this code by according to the Java objects. The use by using this request body annotations, Java will converts sorry JSON objects will converts to Java objects, because Java only know the Java. They don't know any other annotations or annotations like. So this annotation will work for to convert uh, to convert to con to convert JSON object to Java. So the use of this annotation to convert the uh, like to convert the Java objects to JSON object to Java object. Now let's understand the another annotations like bean annotation. Mostly the bean annotation is used for object creations. Means uh, whenever when we wants to means the component controller rest controllers annotation are used for user defined classes for the object creations. Hmm. So the component controller and rest controller component annotations are used for user defined classes to create an object by using for user defined classes, not for predefined classes. Means in Java you have so many classes which have already predefined, so we cannot do any changes in that, but we wants to access the object of that classes. That time you have to use a bean at the rate bean classes, means to create an objects of predefined classes used to create bean annotation is used for predefined to create an object for predefined classes, not for user defined classes. So So we can understand the bean is used for object creations. Then when you create an object for bean by using bean annotations, then it goes to and store in in container, and container will manage the that objects also. So, so now let's understand the containers will manage the objects. So, the how many types of containers we have? There are two types of containers. First one is bean factory, and second one is application context. Application context. So, bean factory is also called as a core container, and application context is called as a advanced container. So the so the so your Spring will by default use the application context, and it reverts to use the application context because it's older versions and it has some problems in bean factory containers. So the Spring will by default use the application context, means advanced container.